Okay. So this is a match from quite a while ago. This is the first tournament that we ever ran for Symphony of the Night randomizer. This was ran. Oh my god! Somebody help me fill in the lore here. Exactly what happened, because this tournament lasted so long. Like, all things considered, the span of the entire tournament, it had like 20 something entrants. I want to say like almost 20 people entered. It was a double elimination bracket, and matches were basically scheduled whenever available. Like, hey, are you available within the next week? Let's try and make a match work. And then they were just streamed on like that time whenever it was most like available. So the stream times were inconsistent. The day was inconsistent. Ah, perfect. Thank you for the challenge link, Talik. This will help remind me of a lot of the stuff that went down. But yeah, it was a double elim bracket with a ton of people in it. So many matches. But yeah, overall, like the tournament ran really long, and that was like a big downside of, like, I think this one tournament lasting like months was part of the reason why it took a long time for somebody to go out of their way to do another tournament. So you can already see that, like, this is me versus Rats and... Sorry, not Rats, sorry. This is me versus Cereal. I was looking at the wrong things. Me, Cereal. And overall, you can definitely... I went for cross strats. Like, this was still known about, obviously, back then, so... But yeah, this is Season 1. Season 1 is very similar, if not, like, directly the same as OG for the most part. Best case scenario, you might be able to clear out one round a week for these tournaments. Yeah, I mean, like, the way that I plan on running mine tournament is I set a hard cutoff for the certain matches, like for the preliminary part, and the actual bracket itself I'm expecting to take about a month at most, and I've limited it to 8 players specifically for that reason. Is so that way, like, even if we only get like 3 matches a week, that's still enough to like finish the whole tournament in about a month. So, and having enough people start in winners and then enough people start in losers, that's going to help bolster like finishing on time. Oh, this was a library card seed. So at the time, the meta definitely wasn't to use the library card unless you had extremely good gear. I think Cereal falls for the bait here, because a Rapier and a Skull Shield is not enough to do it. Oh, he's thinking about it. No. Cereal, no. Don't do... Ah. So, like, this is a better scenario than it is nowadays. Oh my god, and I got a Vorpal right off the bat. Oh no. Getting a Vorpal right off the bat is so bad. Angel of Open is in the shop and he's gotta have to buy it. Oh, I forgot how bad this seed was for Cereal. This one decision 2 minutes into the seed completely ruined his run. Oh no. Oh no, that's so bad. That's so incredibly bad. You guys have no idea. Oh man, this is a trip, dude. This happened nearly 2 years. Oh my god, I got a duplicator? What the fuck? There was a Vorpal and a duplicator at the very start of the run, and Cereal doesn't get... I have 2 Vorpal blades and a duplicator. Oh. Cereal, you fucked up. This is like worst. Okay, I'm doing 0 IQ check, but I think right now I'm just like, oh my god, I have infinite library cards because of that duplicator. Oh my god, this is insanity. I shouldn't have done the 0. I did the 0 IQ check and the 1 IQ check back to back. This is back when I think item checks were a little overvalued in the meta. Item checks, I'm trying to think about, like, what was the meta like back then, right? That's the whole reason I'm kind of just like talking about the tournaments and like the different experiences that we've had with different kinds of tournaments. Back in the day, item checks, like, a lot of people really cared about. This is from about 2 years ago, Bro Mouse, for reference. So this was like the first year that the randomizer came out, but it took us like 8 months to get to this point. So the randomizer came out, we started a tournament relatively quickly afterwards, and then it took about like 8 months to get to the finals, you know? So it took a while. And on top of that, as the tournament progressed, the meta really did develop a lot. And at the time, there was no different presets for the randomizer. There was just the one Soten randomizer, from my understanding. And like different presets didn't really get involved until season 2, all things considered. Like you could still do custom shit, like Mouse always had that enabled. Oh, there was Agonizer. Yeah, I forgot about that. Agonizer just guaranteed you a bad seed, and I think there might have been glitched logic back then, the really bad glitched logic, but still. But as it goes, back then, we really did, at least, I think most people overvalued item checks a lot of the time. I think Talik was definitely one of the first people to realize that like items in this game aren't like super impactful unless you get one of the S tiers or like a combination of S tier items. And that's extremely rare to have in circumstances like this. I think I started to play a little... Yeah, okay. This is where you want to use your library card in OG logic, is right here, because it's just pure time save, especially when you have a duplicator. That's such a huge swing. That's such a huge swing. And I have money too. I have a turquoise here. I unequip the duplicator just to make sure that my stats don't get lowered because of it, and I'm not using used items right now. So instantly sell it, buy Jewel of Open right off the bat because I'm gonna need it to finish the run. There's library cards in the shop, but they're too expensive to buy again. Damn, what a crazy seed. Alucard Shield, that's an insta-buy. Insta-buy. If I find Shield Rod, it's like... Shield Rod and Mana Prism, it's like... It's so over. But to finish my point on, like, tournament meta, because this is OG Soten randomizer... The OG Soten randomizer experience is there is no complexity. Don't mind the quality of the video feed. That's just us streaming to a separate server, and like that just happens because they're viewing through VLC. And if VLC has any connection issues, it does that. So yeah. So the first iteration of the randomizer, the meta was kind of just revolved around like going to different places quickly and trying to do as many checks as you could with the relics that you had. There was some interesting out of logic stuff we could do. For example, I'm doing it right now. With Mist alone, you can check Bat and make it back with a precise double Mist. And I'm going for it right here. I'm going to save just in case, because if you miss the strat for the double Mist, you lose a lot of time. A lot of time. Because you have to wait for your MP to regen naturally, unless you have like Mana Prisms or something like that. But yeah, I'm mostly just focusing on my POV at this point, because Serial is just going to be running around like a crazy person, because his route's not going to make a lot of sense. But yeah, going out of your way to do Mist early, going out of your way to do Mist, or doing this jump with Mist is very... So if you fall down here, right? Trying to get back up with Mist alone, I don't think is super possible, right? No, it is possible. You need to do the double Mist, like I said. Sorry, I'm getting confused. But since I didn't get anything useful, I just reset there because it's not worth trying to go for the double Mist and wasting time there. So that's what that save split is for. That's a very rare save split / situation that you very, very rarely see nowadays. Especially because before the complexity and the logic was like super fleshed out, I don't think that's possible anymore, right? I mean, a check like that is... It's not that it's not possible, sorry. It's just that a check like that is like super out of logic. And it's very rare that you start with just Mist and get into the library like this, so yeah, situations like that really never come up anymore, outside of maybe if you were running OG again, for whatever reason. I considered maybe doing an OG tournament instead of Casual Logic, but Casual Logic is like a mixture of OG and Season 3 randomizer, so that's one of the reasons why I went for it, so. faster than library carding out. So a lot of the stability and mindset that I have about racing now, I didn't really have back then. Again, this was like 2 years ago, Rat Boo. I think nowadays library carding out of that scenario is the right play, especially because I have infinite library cards, but I probably just wasn't thinking about it. I like made the idea to save split early and I just stuck to it. Sometimes, like, if you come up with a route early on, even if you figure out it's a suboptimal route later on, sometimes it's just better to stick with it just to not throw your momentum off, especially in like a race scenario like this. Yeah, save splitting was overvalued, I think, back in the day overall, because people just didn't like the idea of having to traverse large sections of the map without movement a lot of the time. Oh my god, I'm getting pixelated over there. So in general, like, we used to save split a lot. We used to overvalue save splitting. We used to overvalue item checks. There were some people, yeah, this is back in my old place. So the it's the same exact ISP, basically the same exact internet settings, just a different place. So, oh, when the hell did Serial find a friggin' Ring of Varda? Why am I doing this check? See, I'm like going out of my way to do like some really dumbass checks. I grabbed a Marcel for no reason, even though I'm using double Vorpals, which probably has the same, if not better, DPS overall. Oh, Serial's stuck. See, this is the thing. If you have to do the double mist and you run out of MP, you're just stuck here waiting for MP. Serial just got so screwed over this race. That's crazy. Yeah, I literally don't need any more items. The only thing that would be nice to have is a Mana Prism, and your best odds are just like checking stuff along the way. Like checking items that are convenient to check. But the amount of time you would save from a singular Mana Prism, like having infinite Mana Prisms at this rate, probably isn't the same amount of time as like it's going to take me to check all these extra items, if that makes sense. So the reason why that particular save split was so powerful back in the day, Rat Boo, the one that's in the inverted caverns going to creature, a big part of that is just due to the fact that I'm going out of my way for a fucking Zircon and a Rune Sword. This just goes to show my mentality back then was very bad. Yeah, Serial got super screwed over. And honestly, it all just started from using the library card early. Yeah, it's kind of become standard to do the creature check early a lot of the time, mainly because like you don't have a great way to get there without doing that save split or a similar save split. Damn, Serial did a hard ass reset, didn't save the game. That's big fucked. I mean, he should know that he doesn't need the 41 hearts, but this is a race scenario where you're kind of just panicking, you don't really know what's going on. Damn, I forgot how bad this race was. But yeah, Season 1, man. Season 1 was kind of crazy overall. I'm trying to think of like some of the big... ASD started doing Beelzebub early, even without Bat. It seems to be good. Beelzebub early in what way? Like Beelzebub before... or after Trio? Interesting. I can't imagine doing it without Bat, though. That seems like the stair room alone seems really, 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 really slow. But going through the entirety of Alchemy Lab is pretty slow, actually, now that I think about it. Old tourney hype, yeah. The old tournament was a lot of fun, all things considered. It's just crazy to see the meta nowadays, especially because, like, so another thing that's really important to know that's going to be different about my tournament is because we're all the way at Season 3 and we're doing the casual logic, Holy Glasses can be literally anywhere. Silver Ring, Gold Ring, Spike Breaker. The important progression items are randomized in with the relics in this version. And that changes a lot of your strategy going into like the tournament that I'm hosting. Because here, the meta kind of revolved around, you want to do as many checks as you can efficiently. And the really only spot that like has a possibility to screw you over later on is if you don't have Merman statue by the time you get to caverns. And then at that point you find Merman statue later on. Oh, I got a Ring of Var to drop. Is that where ASD got his, maybe? I don't even remember. Yeah, Season 1 was very heavy on speedrunning mechanics overall. Why did I go out of my way for Wolf? There's no way that I'm thinking about Wolf Rising anywhere. I swear to God, I hope I'm not thinking about Wolf Rising. That would be absolute insanity. I'm also killing Minotaur and Werewolf. This is very unorthodox. I think we overvalued the shortcut between Colosseum and Chapel. He library carded again. That's insanity. He doesn't... It's because he didn't go back to Castle Entrance, I don't think, to find the duplicator. Because if he knew that there was a duplicator, he could have kept the library card and then did the library card after getting duplicator. But yeah. Yeah, because Holy Glasses was another thing that was very... you needed to go back to the center of the castle after grabbing... primarily Silver Ring. Silver Ring was so the route was kind of set in stone in a weird way where like you have phase 1 of the randomizer, which is just like getting your feet wet and figuring out what you're doing. I guess I'm using Colosseum to get to Castle Keep. This is a pretty unorthodox... I don't remember if this route is good. I feel like it would have been better to either library card or teleport to Outer Wall and then go from Outer Wall instead of doing the Chapel climb. But I'm not 100% sure on that if my goal is just to get to Castle Keep. Interesting. But yeah, nonetheless, I don't know why I'm going out of my way for a high potion. I guess just for iframes. But this was back when the glitchless Spike Breaker rules were in play. So you needed Spike Breaker in order to get Silver Ring. It was a requirement. In this version of the randomizer. It was basically a way just to avoid people just bypassing Spike Breaker altogether and getting Silver Ring in a way that kind of... oh, there's the Varda. Okay. I just realized that's where the Varda is. Interesting. But yeah, it just... So this old version requiring Spike Breaker before getting Silver Ring, it changed a lot of, like, it dictated the meta a lot of the time. The fact that you're never going to see anybody with Holy Glasses until basically getting ready to go to the second castle, it's like the last thing you get in the first castle most of the time, so yeah, the seed is pretty ridiculous. I'm probably looking for a Mana Prism, yes, but my brain today knows that the time you spend looking for the Mana Prism isn't going to speed up unless you find it super duper quickly. You need to find the Mana Prism very, very fast in order for extra item checks to actually matter. So the longer you spend looking for the Mana Prism, the less return you get on that Mana Prism. Yeah, this is one of the most outrageous seeds I think I've seen. Trying to think back to my OG memories of Randomizer. This is one of the craziest seeds I've ever seen. Overall, though, Season 1 had a good meta that developed very, very far, but I will say OG kind of got to a interesting point, I think, near the end, where the optimal plays became very known a lot of the time. Like, it was kind of easy to read a seed back then. You kind of could, like, figure out, like, this plays... Like, there was a couple of 50-50s, but they weren't that prevalent. I'm going for Wolf Rising, and then I give up. Thank God I gave up. Fucking... Wolf Rising is so incredibly slow. But yeah, man, like this tournament, I think, helped push the randomizer meta along very, very, I wouldn't even say that quickly, because it just forced people to always be racing and playing. That's the thing, is like, I feel like when there isn't a tournament going around, people kind of just like, you know, they're much more casual. about their Soten randomizer playing, and like people don't really push the meta. Yeah, what's up, Epic?
And make them your slaves.
I know, for example, when like there isn't really like anything. Yeah, there was like 6 races a day. There was a ton of racing going on. But I know myself, like when there isn't a tournament going around, I just kind of fuck around and do fun shit. You know, I'm not trying to. Oh my god, the lag on that transformation. I'm doing this the stupid. Well, no, I kind of have to do it this way. This is actually required. Oh, I gotta be careful about my mana here. Do I make it on the first try? This is slow, but so much better than having to return back here for... Yep, let's go. That was good. Yeah, doing those aerial resets with the Mistwolf there was really, really nice. Stuff like that you don't really get to see a lot of the time in, especially Season 2, because I'm going to have a lot to say about Season 2. Season 2, what was the complexity for Season 2 by the time we did the tournament for it? Was the standard complexity 10? It was 8? Really? Damn. 8 sounds about right. Because I know that they got kind of wacky, like, after the tournament, I feel like. Mouse bumped it in the middle of the tournament. Oh my god, I remember now. Oh, I remember now. Damn, that was wild. It's hard to remember the exact settings, but anyways. This version of the randomizer not having any complexity at all is part of the reason I think that it had so much more emphasis on like speedrunning technique, because you couldn't just algorithmically, like you kind of could algorithmically, but so the gambles that you made in Season 1 were more limited in scope, and they didn't lead to insane amounts of time gain or time loss for the most part. So, whereas once Season 2 rolled around and like Holy Glasses got in the mix, and then like Bat could be in the second castle, for example, and that got more prevalent, like stuff like that became very expected. So if you took the path that on paper is less optimal, but led into getting Bat earlier, or led into finding Holy Glasses earlier, or led into different stuff like that, you could end up making a ton of time, even though you picked the less optimal route as far as like check density. And it became much more about like weighing your options and going for high value checks, if you will. So like once you found certain relics in like Season 2, for example, like if you find Jewel of Open, you should go to the caverns like 66% of the time. Just go to the caverns immediately, because the way that the seed wants you to progress is to go into the caverns and find the next bit of progression. That next bit of progression probably won't be nice, you know, but whereas in Season 1, even if you found Jewel of Open, it's still in your best interest to go to Castle Keep early, because you need to grab the teleporter there at some point anyways to get to the second castle. So it's like a 2 birds 1 stone type scenario, but because 33% of the time you find basically jack shit at the Castle Keep, but you might find something good in caverns, you're incentivized to actually forego the quote-unquote optimal route and just play the statistics game at that point and just hope that you find the best possible stuff. Yeah, in Season 1, the Holy Glasses are in the same spot. This is before Mouse was able to figure out how to randomize progression items in to relic locations, because relics and items obviously behave differently. So making sure that they spawned properly, making sure that they didn't like disappear, making sure that the player could actually get them but not like duplicate them and stuff like that is really important. Progression items were set, but the relics were randomized. Ever since Season 2, however, progression items have been randomized, for better or for worse. So The other thing that's very prevalent about Season 1 randomizer is that it was pretty rare to not have at least 3 Vlad relics going into the second castle, I feel like, a lot of the time, so. It was still a statistical wager, but they switched from density to complexity. Yes, I think the switch from prioritizing the density of checks to the complexity of checks made it much more a emphasis on knowing where to go and not necessarily knowing how the fastest way to get around. Everything is explained in the FAQ, yeah. It doesn't mention it. Oh man, I hate to break it to you, but it 100% does. It tells you to drop track 1 and to ignore track 2. I even have a tutorial on my YouTube that explains how to do it. But yeah, just drop track 1. Either way, I think that's enough of like reminiscing, I think, on Season 1. There's a couple things that I guess I'll show off, because right here I'm just kind of doing a pretty, like, not standard route, because my relics are a little weird, but when do I... Oh. Wait, did I find Merman statue in Alchemy Lab? Okay, and then I do a loop-de-loop back to check Merman statue here. Wait a minute. Was this Bat? Oh my god, Bat was behind Holy Symbol? That's rare. That's very rare for a Season 1 seed. Holy crap. Wow, I'm glad I went back for that. Either way. We might be talking about different FAQs. We can move on. This was the finals race between me and there's 2 of me. Wait, what? Or 2 of the alerts? Interesting. I'm gonna cover up my face. Oop. Yes, me versus Daigon. Yeah, that race was wild. I don't have Daigon's perspective on the race. I don't know where I would even begin to try and find it, but yeah. I guess to just talk a little bit about Season 2 and the differences between it and Season 1. This race, for example, just to talk about, like, the tournament format was much different back then. We were able to actually finish the tournament relatively quickly. Was it best of 1? Single elim? I think it was best of 1 single elim, right? Wow, did you know? I was at 50-50? Damn. Hey, Onyx Hunter, what's up? Yeah, that's surprising that it doesn't show up in the Soten.io FAQ, but we have an FAQ specifically on the Soten speedrunning page, as well as the Discord. that might have it there. So that's really strange if it's not on there. I guess it's because not every version of Soten is going to have a track 1 and track 2, now that I think about it. So, one thing you might know is that the cape randomization is now built into the randomizer itself and is no longer part of Talic's tracker. I think that started in Season 2. Another thing to note about Season 2 is that the average length is going to be... Are these on emulator? Yes, everything is being played on the BizHawk emulator. It's a very... it's the basically standard emulator for Soten and stuff like that for both speedrunning, and we've adopted that into the... the randomizer, because if we're going to race the randomizer, we want to be on an even playing field, so we all race on the same emulator, basically. And this emulator has the least amount of advantages over playing on just like console or whatever. It's the most accurate. But yeah, one thing to note is this is pre-item randomization, so the items, names, stats, and sprites and all of that are identical as to what they used to be or what they are in the vanilla game. So when I find Nunchaku, for example, I know that that's a shit weapon and I shouldn't use it overall. So that's one of the things that I think helps in this version of the randomizer, is that your understanding of how well you're doing as far as the items you have and how well you're doing as far as like your ability to kill enemies efficiently, you can keep that stuff easier in your head when you find a drop. Whereas nowadays, I kind of lose track of what items I have, and I barely even check, to be honest. In the current meta with the randomized items, I basically find something that's good enough, and then I stop caring about items for the majority of the run, to be honest. Because, like, and I think that ends up creating a less interesting experience, I think, for a lot of the viewers, which is unfortunate. At least that's what the vibe I pick up from seeing my YouTube stats, you know? It's much harder to clickbait I found Vorpal or I found Chrysogrim or whatever, because it doesn't look like Chrysogrim, it doesn't say that it's Chrysogrim. Most people won't understand that it's Chrysogrim unless they see the animation of the fucking attack swinging or whatever. There's only so many times you can clickbait stuff like that, so either way. But yeah, early on, I'm trying to remember what it was like to start doing Season 2, because it was just miserable. We were having seeds that were just exceptionally long and difficult, and we didn't really understand why. And a big part of that was due to the complexity being so different, you know? Having to check things based off of how complex the chain of relics that you need to find is much different versus just checking every relic that you have access to. It really did prioritize just, for the most part, checking things in a kind of linear way. So, for example, if you find gravity boots, and that's your only sense of progression moving forward, you're like, okay, I know I need to go to Alchemy Lab, because Alchemy Lab has 2 checks that are available because of gravity boots, and I need to go to Library, because Library has 1. And, you know, stuff like that. Or Coliseum. Coliseum has 1 check that's available with just gravity boots. So you make a plan in your head of, like, I need to check these specific areas, regardless of if it's more efficient to, like, go to Outer Wall, or, sorry, Castle Keep, for example. But you don't necessarily want to go to Castle Keep, you know? So... But yeah, this was a tournament seed. This was the grand finals. Yeah, for example, gravity boots. Here, it's worth checking. So I think if I was doing this in like an OG seed, for example, I wouldn't go to Alchemy Lab right now. Or, no, sorry, I wouldn't go to, yeah, I wouldn't go to Alchemy Lab. I wouldn't go to, Coliseum. Sorry, my brain froze. I wouldn't go to Coliseum. I wouldn't go to Alchemy Lab. I would go straight to Outer Wall, because the Outer Wall has a teleporter. That's more important. And the Outer Wall leads to the library. The librarian has a bunch of items that could be important. The librarian also has a relic that's important. But I can think of it as, like, I've found the complexity 0 item, right? Or the complexity 0 relic that I need. This is the start of the chain. You can think of it that way. It's not 100% accurate, and there are some edge cases where it doesn't exactly work out that way. But the way that I think about it when I run a seed that has like a minimum complexity of 8 or higher, I think of it like I've found it at like tier 0, like the 0 complexity, where you can find relics without any other relics involved. Once I've found one there, it's like, okay, I don't really need to worry about 0 complexity relics anymore. Let me check the 1 complexity, the complexity that's locked behind gravity boots. So I basically speedrun checking those checks first and prioritize those for the most part, alongside also getting teleporters that are efficient, checking items that are efficient just in case I find like a library card or a duplicator or something important, you know? So that really does change a lot of how you run these kinds of seeds. And on top of that, like you can find, for example, nothing that interesting here, but like that could be like Silver Ring or Gold Ring or Spike Breaker. And I think at this point we've abandoned the Spike Breaker ruling, where now you don't need Spike Breaker to check Silver Ring. It's just the normal glitchless rule set. So you can use iframe abuse to check Silver Ring without Spike Breaker. So that just is one example of a way that Season 2 has changed the way that people do races. And this is specifically Safe Logic. Safe Logic is designed with the complexity in mind. It was it's like the base level of randomizer at the time. It still is kind of like your go-to basic version of randomizer. I specifically wanted to do Casual Seed for this tournament because I feel like doing a Safe Logic seed didn't make a whole lot of sense. Again, like doing a Safe Logic tournament, didn't make a whole lot of sense because we just did one, you know? And I wanted to try something different, something that would require people to like relearn the game in a way other than just relying on old strategies and old muscle memory and stuff like that. Because the main difference nowadays is just the item randomization. So, and I'll get into that at some point. Maybe I'll pull up a Casual Seed just to pull up to show the difference after this. Oops. Gotta get used to where my microphone is now that I'm using a new one. Always wanted to play it. Yeah, it's a great game casually. This Symphony of the Night is amazing casually as well. I think people really do enjoy the game casually so much that it can kind of, when they see how the speedrun changes the game so drastically. I think a lot of people have either positive or like strong positive reaction to it or a strong negative reaction to it. I think a lot of people will just be like, oh, this isn't fair. They're just abusing mechanics that I didn't know about in the speedrun. That's not fair. That's not real skill or whatever the fuck. But and then a lot of other people are like, oh my god, I didn't even know you could do that in this game. That's so cool. So it's like a mix. It's a 50-50, I feel like, a lot of the time when people find out that the game is extremely abusable. I can't believe I won doing this jank-ass shit, by the way. It probably would have been better if I wanted to do these Alchemy Lab strats. I should have just fucking teleported to Castle Entrance. Just so that way I could have the Castle Entrance teleporter open, and I would have the Alrox teleporter available. So this was a mistake for sure. This was back when I was getting cocky, trying out some wild shit. But I mean, like, stuff like this, sometimes you just want to try it out just to try it out, you know? But I think most efficient use of this type of strategy, which is going to the Alchemy Lab early, would have involved teleporting there from Castle Entrance. Yeah. The randomizer opened up a lot of possibilities. Oh my god, getting Leapstone there. So it's like I would have already had Leapstone anyways, and I would have had a teleporter open, so it would have been worth it, I think, overall. Yeah, it would have been better for me to use the Alrox teleporter to get to Castle Entrance, so that's fine. Lesson learned. But yeah, nonetheless, this just goes to show my mindset where I don't even care about anything else. I'm just literally just trying to prioritize getting relics in a specific order, because that's what the complexity chain really requires of you, or really is asking of you. The game is really like, hey, you found gravity boots, now you need to find the next thing. right? And the next thing can be in one of 4 places. And then you find, for example, Leapstone. And it's like, okay, now I have access to another 6 locations. I'm going to ignore some other ones unless they're right in front of me. And I'm going to go check those 6 locations. And then I find another thing. And then it's like, okay, now that I've found, let's say, for example, Holy Glasses, it's like, okay, the game wants me to go to the second castle because I found Holy Glasses. So let me just go to the second castle, you know? That sort of thing. Like, I prioritize that a lot, personally. That doesn't mean that it's always the best strategy. That's the thing about Randomizer. At the end of the day, every loadout that you're going to see, every single seed is going to be slightly different. It's going to be random. So you are a lot of the time just looking for a way to simplify options to make it easier for you to make decisions. Oh wow, a Dark Shield drop. Dark Shield is actually very great because it works as a shield, so you can start shield dashing, and it also does damage. So low level enemies, you can just kind of kill them by pulling out the shield, and then you don't have to waste time doing jump slashes. So, and you just remain mobile the whole time. Oh, I thought that was a library card. Counting was a big thing in Season 2. So the thing about counting is that you can't guarantee that your complexity count is 100% accurate most of the time, and to do so during a race situation just turned out to be very difficult to do overall. Like, I couldn't do it reliably. There were so many times where I thought I was on the right count, but I was technically wrong, but then I'd still found the right things at the right time, so it felt like I was right. Like, counting complexity like seemed like a good idea, but it turns out that like it wasn't necessarily right. And on top of that, complexity could always be 1 higher than you think it is overall. So yeah, and it just kind of turned out most of the time you could not guarantee, but you were pretty confident in finding the last relic, which most of the time. So I guess to kind of give a bigger overview about what to expect out of like complexity style randomizer is that you essentially find all these different keys, these different relics that unlock different other relics that unlock other relics, and you go down this chain of progression eventually to, in this version, let's say it was 10. So you find 10 different progression relics / items that unlock the next thing, and then the 10th one is the final one. And the final one, for the most part, is always going to be a Vlad relic, because you need all 5 Vlad relics to get to Dracula and then kill Dracula and beat the game. So most of the time you're just like, man, I need to find this last Vlad relic. And like 75-ish% of seeds, that last Vlad relic is in the first castle, but it's locked behind something that you don't have access to until you've already gone to the second castle. So I would say like 80% plus number of seeds, you're going into the second castle just to come back to the first castle. So it changed the priority that you would use your library card in. Because in Season 1, it was extremely, extremely, extremely rare to need to go back to the first castle. Oh, this is very loud. Whoever mixed this song extremely loud. But yeah. So in Season 1, OG, if you will, you had a higher emphasis on getting to the second castle after completing all of the first castle. So basically every seed outside of checking Holy Symbol, if you didn't have access to a Merman statue, you would fully clear the first castle. And then Season 2, it kind of turned into this thing where it's like, okay, when do you go back to the first castle? That was the real game changer a lot of the time, where it was like, okay, I need to go back to the first castle eventually, but when do you do it? Do you do it after you find one progression item? Do you do it after you find a specific type of progression item that you think fits into your chain better? Like, for example, if you already have Silver Ring, you might be like, oh, I'm not going to go back until I find Gold Ring, and then I'm going to check Holy Glasses, right? That was a common scenario in Season 2. Or maybe you go back after you find Jewel of Open instead, because you're like, oh, Jewel of Open has access to 4 different relics for me to check now. So I can go check 4 relics when I go back now instead of just checking the 1. And then there was all these different scenarios where it's like, okay, do I save split and then use a library card? Do I only go back when I'm close to a teleporter, like after killing Akmadon or after Death, for example. Those are 2 bosses that are close to teleporters that will teleport you back to Castle Keep in the second castle, and then you would use the normal way to go back to the first castle, then teleport around again. So library cards become very much more important in Season 2, and then figuring out when to go back to the second castle, because there was very few seeds where you didn't need to go back to the second castle. Or, sorry, go back to the first castle. It was very rare that you find everything in the first castle that you need, except for, like, a Vlad relic or something, and then you go to the second castle and then just find the last Vlad relic. That was extremely rare. Yo, what's up, Dogwood? So, in general, to compare Season 1 versus Season 2, Season 1 was much faster because your goals were kind of contained in a way, where it was like, okay, step 1, find Bat, or find some form of flight. Step 2, find Jewel of Open, so that way you can get to Gold Ring and Spike Breaker. Step 3, get to Silver Ring, after getting Gold Ring and Spike Breaker. Step 4, get Holy Glasses. Step 5, go to the second castle. And along the way, you're picking up basically every other relic in the first castle. And then the second castle became its own little mini gamble of like, okay, where do I find the last Vlad relic in the second castle? Because the last Vlad relic was either guaranteed to be in the second castle, or you would have all 5 in the first castle. And that's Season 1. Season 2, the emphasis really did become about like planning around your complexity, checking high complexity areas. So because certain relics are more difficult to get to than others, they require extra relics. Like, for example, getting to the Silver Ring location requires that you have, the game assumes that you need to have Spike Breaker, Jewel of Open, and Mist. And that's a relatively high demand of relics, like to have that combo. Going to the Spike Breaker location, it is another one that is a high complexity because it requires that you have Bat, Echo of Bat, and Jewel of Open to get down there in the first place. So that's another high complexity check. Holy Glasses is another one. It requires both gold and silver rings. So that's 2 different objects that you can like lock behind other stuff. There's a couple other ones overall, but a lot of the time, once you find, like, for example, everything you need for Silver Ring, sometimes you just say, fuck everything else, I'm just going to go to Silver Ring, I only need 1 Vlad relic, and I have everything I need for Silver Ring. There's a decent chance that Silver Ring has the last Vlad relic, you know? And that's the other thing, is it lengthened out the actual length that it took to finish a seed. And the other reason why seeds became longer, I forgot to mention this at the start, but Season 1.5 going into Season 2 was the start of guarded logic. So essentially what that meant is that Mouse developed ways for specific item locations to have relics there. So there were specific item locations that were guarded by specific bosses. So those bosses weren't guaranteed to drop a relic because at the time, Mouse couldn't find a way to make bosses spawn relics if they didn't already spawn relics normally in the game. So instead, Mouse found these places with items that were locked behind bosses and then made the relic spawn there, hence starting guarded logic. So that added extra relic checks to the potential pool of relic checks, which is great. That's more content. You know, it varies up the way that you play the game a lot of the time. So I think most everybody was very happy to have guarded logic be added to the repertoire of the randomizer. But on average, it probably added an extra like 10 to 15 minutes of playtime per seed just to get to Grand Falloon, which was an extra boss that you needed because behind Grand Falloon is Morgamil, I believe. Normally, and that location it was swapped to be a relic location possibly. There was Doppelganger 40, which behind Doppelganger 40 was Darkblade normally. It's like where the Crystal Cloak is, but in the second castle. There was Beelzebub, which had the Ring of Arcana behind the door that opened behind Beelzebub. And then, what was the last one I'm thinking of that I'm forgetting? It's in the first castle, isn't it? Oh, Scylla, of course, Crystal Cloak, exactly in the first castle, duh. So yeah, Scylla doesn't normally drop a relic. So those 4 bosses were added to the places that you need to check nowadays once Season 2 started. So not only is the complexity essentially meaning that we're going to be kind of like spread out more and kind of checking things in a less efficient way to it's ironic, right? We're doing things less efficiently as far as like the density of checks, like going to this location, then this location, then this location in the optimal way. Now we're prioritizing going to complexity locations. So higher complexity locations are prioritized depending on what general relics you have. And that's only because safe logic requires a specific complexity level. That's it. That's the reason why we do it in that way, right? What's up, Dogwood? Yeah, this is a new microphone. I dropped money on a new microphone. Hopefully it sounds a whole lot better. I hope it sounds a whole lot better. If not, I'm gonna fucking cry. But that's right. But that's right there. So there's no need to go out of your way. I don't know exactly what you're referring to if you're talking about Scylla. So do you guys get to the point where you just know how the seed's gonna play out? In safe logic, I think near the end of season 2, I got relatively good at predicting the ending of seeds based off of the start of them. So I would say, yeah, it got kind of predictable near the end where you would be like, oh, well, there's like 4 locations left in the first castle, but like it's probably going to be, you know, Silver Ring, because Silver Ring was one of the most likely spots for the last Vlad relic. For whatever reason, Bat seemed to be very like common at the Holy Glasses spot. That I feel like 60% of seeds had Bat locked behind Holy Glasses, you know? Is it possible for a seed to be unbeatable? No. The reason why the logic exists the way that it is to prevent unbeatable seeds from being possible. So, for example, you'll never end up in a spot where like the Bat relic is hidden behind, or an easier one to realize is like the Mist relic being hidden in the Bat relic location, for example. Because you can't get to the Bat relic location without Mist. So Mist being locked behind there would essentially mean that you can't get it. So it's not even like that would necessarily cause a soft lock, because you could beat the game without Mist. But the way that the randomizer is set up is that every relic needs to be obtainable. None of them are locked behind their own gates, if you will. So every relic needs to be attainable, and you can use that information to know for a fact where certain relics are. For example, I've done that before to essentially skip, like in the first castle, you can skip like maybe 1 or 2 relics if you are able to suss it out in that way. But it's quite rare that ends up being the case. It's only like a handful of seeds where you're able to figure that out quickly. So you enjoy the content on YouTube? Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate you stopping by. Right now, we're just kind of vibing, watching some, this is a tournament match from season 2. So we're just kind of watching it over and kind of reliving what it was like back in the day. This is from March of this year. So before the year is over, we're doing another randomizer race, which is crazy because we went like, how long between the season 1 and season 2 tournaments? It was like almost a whole year. And then the season 1 race, or season 1 tournament, lasted a whole year basically. So oh yeah, music randomizer is also added somewhere in season 2. Season 2 had like a plethora of updates, all things considered. And season 3 didn't really start until the item randomization was like finished, which was relatively close to the end of the season 2 seed stuff. So trying to help the average. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Was that redheaded, DB? My hair was like more pinkish coralish. I'm thinking about dyeing my hair pink again soon. It's just a faded pink. So it's a mixture of the pink mixed with the bleached hair. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have much more to say about season 2. How did this seed go? I wonder. Let's just fast forward a little bit. Yeah, so far, like we're 30 minutes in, and all I have is 1 Vlad relic. I have, oops. I have 1 Vlad relic. I have 1/2 of Holy Glasses check. I'm in the caverns because I found Jewel of Open, but I don't have Merman Statue, so Merman Statue could be another possible gate for you to have to come back to. Or sorry, Holy Symbol. Sorry, I always get those mixed up. I might need to come back and check Holy Symbol at some point, but I'm going on my way to fight Scylla, because Scylla is a location that has a potential relic. What was here? I didn't need to buff up the Girthang, to be honest. Girthang is a beast without it. Spike Breaker. That's actually kind of good, because you can use Spike Breaker to check the Spike Breaker location out of logic. Oh, that's the last thing I guess I should talk about is, so safe logic became a lot about optimizing, checking things out of logic a lot of the time, especially the high complexity checks. So the reason why went 2 and 2 again, feel kind of average, but the grind continues. I feel that, Sapo. If I had $1 for every time I went 2 and 2 at a local, it fucking sucks, man. Nothing, honestly, it hurts really bad going 2 and 2. The worst part for me going 2 and 2 at a local, to just go on a tangent about fucking Melee, is like round 1 I would beat my round 1 opponent, right? And like I didn't get a bye, so then I would fight the bye round, which would be like someone like fucking Gatsu. If I had $1 for every time I had to play Gatsu round fucking 2 winner's side, I swear to God I'd have like 20 bucks, right? So I'm just getting farmed by Gatsu every fucking week, right? And it's like, well, back into losers, I guess. And then it's like, beat somebody in losers, and then I'm fighting losers round 3, and I'm fighting fucking like Crudo or Odie or fucking Lad, one of the like strongest people in CFL, and I'm just like, man, unlucky seeding. I just wasn't good enough. Like, Central Florida is just way too powerful of a region for Melee for someone of my like average skill level to be anything lower than like, or anything higher than like fucking, I don't know, Garbo seed. It was very, very rare. Like every once in a while I would make a run into like losers round 5 and I would go like 3 and 2 because I got like a bye somewhere or something like that. It was very, very rare that I made it any farther than that because there's just so many fucking killers. And I'd have to run into people like fucking Forest. God, Forest is so fucking cracked. Every once in a while fucking Wizzy would show up for no goddamn reason. Mewtwo King would be there. Fucking Hungrybox would be there. And it's like, at that point, just fucking go home, man. It's a goddamn local. What are you doing? Anyways, what was there? What did I just reset over? Nothing. Okay. That happens. I guess to finish explaining Season 2 and a lot of the changes around it is, so relics could just not be there, by the way, because there are additional relic check locations because of the guarded locations. That means certain relic locations just have nothing there, you know? So right there, you saw that there was nothing at the place where Merman Statue normally spawns. So, nothing there. It's fine. You just move on. So not every single location is going to have a relic there, for example. And then also, the meta really did kind of get defined around going out of your way to check places that are out of logic. So I'll show you an example of that coming up here, because I'm going to get into the catacombs here. In the catacombs, that's another blank relic location. In the catacombs with these relics, the game assumes you're only able to do Grand Falloon at this point. Because the game assumes that the normal way to beat or to get to Spike Breaker is to have the Bat Relic and have Echo of Bat. So this is what we would call doing an out of logic check, which is going to Spike Breaker, checking the Spike Breaker location, even though you don't have the required relics that the game expects you to have. This is because safe logic is designed to be beginner friendly, and for it to be beginner friendly, it locks locations behind their intended solutions in the vanilla game, right? So if you've beaten the game in its original vanilla status at least once, you should know how to finish a safe logic seed. That is the goal of safe logic seeds, right? I'm getting bodied by this Discus Lord. Holy shit. So because of this, runners can take advantage of the fact that there are other ways to get to certain locations. So I'm going to get a good visual example of that. What was over here? I'm hoping there's nothing here so I could save split, and it's silver ring. Okay, that's kind of... Oh god, safe logic. Safe logic hurts, man. Sometimes you just hope that there isn't anything at a specific location just so you can get the save split and maximize the save split. So here I'm specifically putting on the spike breaker. I can't see what's going on here, but because I've played the game before and I know the location or the layout of the blind room, I'm just putting on the spike breaker so I don't take damage from the spikes, and then I can just make my way through the room like normal. So I'm physically able to get to this location, but the logic of the randomizer doesn't expect me to be here. And because of that, there is a chance that I find a high complexity relic here without having the requirements for that relic. So that also plays into a lot of how you would determine where to go for your final relic. For example, if this is a Vlad relic, I can assume, okay, this is the final Vlad relic. Right there, boom. This is so common. So this is extremely common that I'm like, okay, this is what the game expects to be my final Vlad relic because this is a high complexity location. So once I go into the second castle, I can assume, for the most part, that maybe I don't need to look around for a way to go back to the first castle. Maybe I just finish up the second castle instead. Maybe the second castle just happens to have the last Vlad relic. That doesn't always mean that that's the case, but it is a big part of the meta, is trying to predict the seeds based off of what you find and when you find them, basically. So, because I can assume that this is a high complexity Vlad relic, which high complexity Vlad relics usually mean it's the last Vlad relic, which means that Bat is probably locked behind either Silver Ring or somewhere in the second castle or something like that. It's like a high complexity location, so. Oh yeah, another big part of Season 2 meta was Holy Glasses at Spikebreaker. Because that meant Bat in the first castle. Yeah, that was another thing. You could determine that Bat has to be in the first castle and available to you somewhere if you find Holy Glasses at Spikebreaker. Just from sussing out like a process of elimination type thing. So at this point, I should be going to All Rocks, yep, to check Holy Glasses. Holy Glasses is vanilla Holy Glasses. That makes sense because I found both gold and silver ring in the first castle. So this being my way to get out of the first castle makes sense. So that means Bat is likely in second castle, and I'm aware of this. So at this point, you just want to finish up whatever checks you have left in the first castle as efficiently as you can. Or you just go straight to the second castle. I don't remember. Have I not? I feel like I haven't done some checks. Oh, I found a mana prism there. Nice. So yeah, we are in the second castle without Bat, without like our only transformation is Wolf. Like this is very common that you have to traverse the entirety of the second castle without Bat. And that is like probably like 90% of Season 2 Safe Logic Seeds required this. So, and that's something that I personally didn't enjoy about doing Safe Logic Seeds like all the time is like, man, you just never have Bat, and Bat is so much more versatile for like movement in this game. Like you have so many different options. You have backdash cancels transforming into Bat. You have dive kick cancels transforming into Bat. You have the wing smash. You can cut your wing smash short. You can change your momentum using mist bats and stuff like that. Like there's so many different combination. You can do gravity jumps into the Bat transformation. There's so many different ways that you can manipulate your movement with Bat alone that it makes for a more skillful way to move around the map a lot of the time, as opposed to just backdashing and jumping and gravity jumping over all over the place. One of the things that is like a low-key part of the meta for Season 2 is Wolf movement, because most of the time, Wolf was probably your only transformation a lot of the time. So if you can get good with using the Wolf in specific scenarios, you'd end up eking out a handful of seconds over your competitors who don't know how to use good Wolf movement. So it's just one of those things that it's like, it's weird that this particular meta kind of pushed using Wolf in unconventional ways, but it was very high risk, high reward, because the Wolf transformation took, a good couple of seconds just to start up. And then if you were to get hit out of it immediately, then you're locked in stun waiting for the hit to go away. And you just wasted like 5 seconds to transform into Wolf just to get hit immediately. So there was a risk reward involved. Whereas the Bat, it's like, you're not going to get hit out of the Bat transformation unless you super screw up. and or if you don't have mana overall. So, but yeah, wolf movement became very important in season 2, and I'm just curious to see how this seed ends. I'm just gonna fast forward a little bit. Still only 2 Vlad relics. Mist and Power of Mist. 3rd Vlad relic was that creature. Damn. Okay. There's a save split at Force of Echo. Oh my god, wow, I got hit there? That's wild. I feel like there's a Vlad relic here, right? Yeah, I remember. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, so I don't want to go back to the first castle right now because I found a Vlad relic. Yep, right there. I think a lot of people would have save split at this point, but yep, I got kind of lucky there. So I found like the last couple of Vlad relics like back to back to back. If I didn't find the Tooth of Vlad at Spikebreaker, I would have thought after grabbing Mist to go back to the first castle to check Silver Ring, to go back to check the Bat Relic, because those are like high complexity locations. But because I found the last Vlad Relic at a high complexity location, I could be pretty safe to assume that like, okay, I don't need to go back to the first castle. Like, for example, it's probably Vanilla Bat or Bat is at Silver Ring or something like that. So it'd be nice to have Bat, but by the time that you go all the way back just to grab the Bat Relic and then go back to where you were before, which was at like Succubus or whatever, or not Succubus, sorry, Medusa, you've already wasted so much time, you know, like the speed that you're going to get from the Bat Relic at that point isn't even worth it. So I think I made the right decision here by just powering through. And like we went from, on average, I would say the seed length in Safe Logic was somewhere around like 55, 50-ish minutes to finish a seed to about like an hour 10. So it was like an extra 20-ish minutes added between OG Logic to Safe Logic on average, I would feel like. If you had like a below hour and 5 minute average, you had like a lot of good luck with your seeds and you were executing well. So back then we kind of like cared about our average segments. Like for example, mine's on screen right now. My average completion time is like hour and 6:37. I used to care about this, but now it's like seeds can just vary so much, so wildly that it's not a super accurate representation of your like overall skill necessarily. Because also you could just get a string of really bad seeds and then like your average fucking tanks, and that used to happen. But yeah, this is like an hour 10-ish seed overall, so that's like average. It's okay. Hour 10 is fine. The worst you would see is like an hour 25 on like a seed where you needed to complete like the entirety of both castles while also switching between them. That was pretty common. So overall, season 2, it really did slow down the meta a lot and kind of force people to play in a more methodical way, I guess, overall. But yeah, GG's to myself. I won the tournament off this seed in particular. I wish I had Daigon's POV to look at to see the strats that he went for, but overall, that's season 2 for you. And I guess I'll just pull up like a casual seed for now and just compare, because this isn't going to be like a race seed. This is just going to be a seed that I've done just to explain what casual is in season 3. So we can watch my most recent YouTube video for those that haven't seen it. That's fine. I'll just have the sound off. That's fine. Speaking of, if you're watching this now, hey, real quick, do me a favor. If you haven't dropped a like on the video yet, drop a like. Do it. Do it now. Just drop a like. You don't have to watch the whole thing. I mean, you know, just drop a like. Just drop a like for your boy. Trying to get these YouTube numbers up. You know how it is. God, I love this song. All right, I'm gonna get some water because I've been talking a lot. So give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna BRB.
Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them your slaves.
Slacker GB, maybe? I'm just gonna call you Slacker. Thank you. Oh god, thank you so much for the Prime Gaming sub. Those go a long way, honestly. That chair looks comfy. It's pretty good. It's an older chair though. I wish it was a man, when I first got this thing was 10 out of 10. But now it's I've had to duct tape the arms. It's it's in shambles compared to what it used to be, but I've had it for like 5 years. Maybe less than that. Maybe like 4 years, but still good. Good chair. So, I would say that this is a slightly above average seed compared to what casual is like overall, but this is a decent representation of what casual is like. Hey, did you know? I think that's still the accurate did you know number. But yeah, subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't already. Like my videos, leave comments. That stuff goes a long way. I really do appreciate everybody who does that. But overall, like you know, prologue is prologue. There's nothing too crazy about that. Let's get to the meat. The more defined aspects of what makes casual casual. So, one thing is that we're playing on Season 3, so you might notice that some of the items that you're going to find are going to look a little funny. The sprites have been randomized, the names of those items have been randomized, and their attributes as well as their stats have all been randomized. So, you're not guaranteed to use the item that you see in front of you, basically. So, overall, like if you see something that like drops and it has the sprite of a chrysogram, but it looks all funky and deep fried, it doesn't mean that it's a chrysogram, right? Or if you find the sprite or something that says that it's a chrysogram, for example, like the name of chrysogram, doesn't mean that it's a chrysogram. There are some items that are guaranteed to be the same sprite, just for the sake of sanity, like keeping the sanity of runners. And items are randomized within the same class of items. So throwables are going to be randomized amongst other throwables. Swords are randomized amongst other swords. Shields are randomized amongst other shields. That sort of thing. So item randomization does change a lot about how you prioritize your ability to kill things, because that's what items essentially are only used for. They're really, well, for the most part, they're used for killing things efficiently and moving efficiently throughout the castle. So library cards are still extremely important. Mana prisms are still extremely important. Duplicator, still extremely important. So all those things, collectively, it's important to keep in mind when it comes to speedrunning. I missed when library card and meal ticket had different colors. Yeah, library card and meal ticket used to have different colors, but now they're randomized to be the same exact sprite, so you can still get baited constantly by, and that's just like a classic right there. Like, see right there. This is a great example. This has a very similar sprite to the Varda. In fact, I think it's like just straight up a vanilla Varda sprite, color and all. And then you pick it up and it says that it's the Stariolite, and then I look at it in the menu at some point and it's just like a sellable gem. So it's like, so it doesn't mean anything when you look at the sprites themselves. So you really do have to like sit and look at the descriptions, because those are what determines the actual ability / usability of that item 99% of the time. Some attributes are still randomized, so it'll say that it has the attribute of one weapon, but it really is the attribute of another. That's something that I do kind of wish was patched at some point, but it does increase like the random utility of certain things. So overall, it's not like necessarily a negative thing, but you still do want to check specific sprites so you can get an idea of like sprite type or item type that's available around you. So like I found a sword at the top of the stairs at the beginning of this part of the Marble Gallery. So if I don't have a sword right now, so it's like, hey, maybe I'll just go get it just to see if it's a good sword or not, you know, that kind of deal. So you end up in a weird way doing more item checks and doing less item checks at the same time in a weird way. Because I think the intention was you have to do more item checks. See right here, it says that it's just a sellable. Right here, I'm checking all of my items to see what they actually are and checking their stats and all that other stuff. So a big part of like what makes, I think, somebody a good speedrunner in the era of the 3rd season with random items is the fact that they're able to read descriptions quickly and accurately, as well as keep track of the different types of items that they have available to them and what they could possibly be, and finding the right times to check them. There's a lot of runners that I will see pick up an item and open the menu immediately, and then pick up another item and then opening the menu immediately. Yeah, I'm getting roasted here. I mean, I was getting super unlucky with my last couple casual seeds, and I think it's because I was playing them wrong. I was playing them like they were casual, or like they were safe logic seeds overall. So I think that was my problem. And I've started to remember that density of checks is way more important, and I'll get into that. But yeah, overall, it's you are going to find that, and because the items are so, because the items are random, your strategy around doing damage, at least for me, a lot of the time is just dependent on finding a singular weapon that is good enough and using that to get through, as well as like using spells. Like right there, I'm like, damn, I'm kind of low on health. I don't want to just punch this fucking Diplo Sisyphus to death. So let me just use a spell. Or right here, I don't want to fight these stone roses because I only have fists. Let me just use a spell. Use the iframes from the spell to get past them. So overall, knowing where to use like your like using combat efficiently and relying on your fists and relying on some subpar items and using that to finish the game is, I think, more common now with the item randomizer. Every once in a while, you'll find an item that's very rarely used because of its poor stats that's actually boosted up to a decent weapon or a decent item with new stats. For example, Muramasa, the blood katana, is a pretty trash weapon overall because you need to level it up by constantly killing enemies. And in a speedrun sense, it's a very slow process. It's very not smart to just constantly grind on the same enemies over and over and over again when you need to be making progress towards beating the final like boss of the game. But every once in a while, its starting stats are actually quite good, and it has a great hitbox, and you can also level it up like somewhat passively. Like you can maybe give it like an extra 2 to 3 attack power throughout the entirety of a normal playthrough if you get it early on. So in Season 3, Muramasa can be a decent weapon because it has a good hitbox, and its hitbox is determined by its stats, by the way. Sorry, I should mention this. So the Muramasa by itself isn't guaranteed to have a good hitbox, but if you find a Muramasa that has good stats natively, it will have a good hitbox because it's like final form has a very great hitbox. Hits twice, very large. It also always has you with a dark metamorphosis effect, so you'll always heal off of blood, which is also very nice in some situations. So because of that, that turns a like low tier weapon into a viable weapon using the item randomization and the fact that its stats are randomized. So that's one thing that makes certain weapons more viable. Another one is like Buffalo Stars are kind of your go-to throwable if you have Duplicator and you have a throwable, but you might find yourself using Block and Eyes or Spears or even stuff like Power of Sire or like Neutron Bomb sometimes, depending if it's like your only viable means of doing options. And sometimes those items end up having like insane stats. Like if you have a spear that's doing like over 100 damage per throw, the spears can like multi-hit on bigger enemies too and bigger bosses. So spears can end up being like insanely overpowered, like almost as strong as like fucking using Alucard shield. And speaking of shields, this is another thing that completely changes the game, is that shields, like, okay, so shields are very, very weird. They have the chance to have a hitbox. They also have a chance to do damage. They're not guaranteed, like just because it has a hitbox doesn't mean it's guaranteed to do damage. And just because it does damage, if you look at the stats in the menu, doesn't mean it's guaranteed to have a hitbox. So in order for a shield to actually physically do damage, it needs to have both of those things, and those are both shuffled around. And then on top of that, the attribute of the Shield Rod spell is determined by the sprite of the shield, but whether that sprite or that Shield Rod spell itself does damage is also random. So like, for example, this happens relatively frequently, is that you find Alucard shield, And you also find Shield Rod, right? And then you use the Shield Rod spell with the Alucard shield, assuming it's the actual Alucard shield and not the Alucard shield because they have the same exact sprite. Oh, found a duplicator. Nice. Those things in conjunction with each other doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the actual Shield Rod spell that you expect. So you can apply the Shield Rod spell to the Alucard shield and then try and use it, and it won't be the same. It won't do the same amount of damage. It might have a different like attribute altogether. It might do like fucking fire damage for all you know because it randomized its attribute amongst the other Shield Rod spells. And then it might not even have a hitbox. So you might try and use it to like do damage to enemies, and then it just nothing comes out and you just get bodied for using it. So but the pro side of all of this is the most overpowered shield possibility does exist with the Iron Shield. So if the Iron Shield has a hitbox and has and does damage, and the type of damage that it does is like fast damage, it's the most OP shit in the game. It's so crazy because the shield effect of Iron Shield is if you block damage or just contact the shield in general while having the Iron Shield held out, you gain like a 1.5 seconds of invincibility. And that second and a half of invincibility lasts even if you do damage using the shield. So you can just use the shield to be invincible and do damage at the same time. It's super broken. It's very similar to the Alucard shield, except it doesn't require any MP. So that is one of the long and short of the item randomization. Here, I have to read all of the different attributes here. I'm reading the bottom here to see what the actual item does, as well as looking at its stats here. So for example, when I went over that Ring of Varda here, I'm checking, it says increases overall strength. That isn't the actual description of Ring of Varda. The actual description of Ring of Varda is golden ring to rule them all or some shit like that. So this is actually the Ring of Feanor description, but its stats, it's +7 strength, +17, +17, +12. Like, these are good stats. So it's like, okay, I'm going to buy it anyways because I'm able to see the actual stats themselves. How many people are in the tournament tomorrow? Anywhere from 0 to every human being on the planet. It's an open ladder format, so as many people that are able to do races tomorrow are from tomorrow leading up until the 21st. That is the window where people are able to do races for the open ladder, and then the people who do the best in the open ladder are floated into the final bracket on the winner's side, and then I'm going to have a last chance qualifying race for people to get in, and they will get in on the loser side depending on if they make top 4 in that race. So that is how you enter into the final bracket, but this is all part of the same tournament. So everybody is able to enter into the tournament. All you have to do is show up, do some races, have a good time. You need a minimum of 5 races to try and make it into the final bracket, and then on top of that, you also need to be top 4. But you're still in the tournament if you just show up and do races. Like, you're still a part of the tournament. So anybody's allowed in, and it could be like 200 people, 700 people, 6 billion people, you know. It just all depends on how many people show up and want to do races. So it's open to literally everybody. It doesn't matter your skill level because so many different skill levels exist in this game, and so many people are new to speedrunning in general and new to the randomizer. Just like, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people started out that way. A lot of people are like, man, I'm not very good. I just want to, but they got involved. They started doing races and they made it a more consistent thing, and they got better over time by doing it. So overall, I think it's worth trying out even just a handful of times, you know, and you get to say that you're part of the tournament at the end of the day. So yeah, it's a ton of fun nonetheless. So I think it's a good time. It gives you an excuse to finish a seed too if you're one of those people that like has a hard time sitting down and finishing a seed. Doing it as a race will kind of be like, okay, I gotta finish. Or, you know, you're not forced to finish, but you're incentivized to finish. You can always forfeit if like something comes up and you can't finish the seed or whatever. So, and that's the thing, is if there's multiple people involved, you can still win ELO while not even finishing first. You can get second or third or fourth or fifth, depending on how many people are in the race, and you could still end up winning ELO. So it's still worth like going into the race, even if you don't expect yourself to win the whole thing, because it's not a winner takes all for every single race. It's based off the ELO system. So you can still end up winning ELO even if you don't win the race. So I definitely recommend getting involved in as many races as possible because of that. So, but yeah, that is the first part of the Season 3 Casual Logic race stuff that we should be getting into. The second part is the fact that casual logic, all that stuff that we were talked about, complexity and like reading the complexity, going to high complexity locations, trying to figure the seed out that way, you get to throw all that out the window because now it's basically the same as safe logic as far as the restrictions for relics. So you can still check stuff out of logic, but that logic is checking stuff out of logic no longer is a huge advantage like it used to be. Like you're not more likely to find a high complexity like Vlad relic, for example, because the complexity no longer really exists in the same way. There's no like the minimum possible complexity is like 0 basically. So it's very similar to how the original randomizer worked. But now there's still guarded logic on top of that, and on top of that, there's also the item randomization. So that does change the meta more so than you would think, because, again, Holy Glasses can still be anywhere, Spike Breaker can still be anywhere, Gold Silver Ring can still be anywhere, right? So, because of that, there's also the chance that, like, you get gold, or, like, Gold and Silver Ring and Holy Glasses or whatever early, and then on top of that, you need to also go to the second castle early or something like that, and you end up doing the majority of the seed in the second castle and then come back to the first castle. All that stuff is still possible, but the overall meta for this seems to go back to doing checks as efficiently as possible with the movement that you have. One of the things that is important to note is that high complexity like locks, for example, like Bat is a high complexity lock because it unlocks a lot of different areas. Those are less likely to find early on in a seed type that prioritizes complexity. But since this seed type doesn't really care about its complexity, you can find Bat literally anywhere. You can find any relic essentially anywhere, so long as it makes sense in logic. Like you're still not going to be able to find Mist behind the Bat relic location, but you know, there's no like minimum depth you need to get to before finding Bat, or minimum depth before finding Mist. You can find it at like complexity 0 levels basically. So because of that, you're essentially more likely to find Bat earlier on, which means that you're more likely to have movement options earlier on. So most seeds end up being pretty much better because of that, in my opinion. And you aren't forced to find the last Vlad relic in the same like 4 locations, which is like behind a Holy Symbol, behind Silver Ring, behind Holy Glasses, that kind of stuff. So yes, I'm hosting a community tournament. That is what is happening. Exclamation mark tournament has all the info you'll need. So, but yeah, I think that's the majority of what I wanted to talk about as far as like comparing the stuff. As far as like, I guess the last thing I'll talk about is players to look out for, I guess. Let me open up the Discord and look at some people. I guess actually I don't need to do that. I'll do it this way. But yeah, like literally anybody can do well in this type of format, honestly, because it is a ladder. The people who just do well in the most amount of races are going to be the most successful, honestly. But there are people that race all the time, you know. People like Dogwood, Razio, God's Child has done a ton. Talik, Digon's trying to get back into it. ASD, like these are all people. Refined Hornet, Dinner Dog, Cryo, Freeland. These are all people that love to do races pretty regularly. I'm trying to see if there's any more people that I've missed. MT, Cryo, I've already said. Chris. Talik's gonna bop everyone? Not necessarily. At the end of the day, it's still randomizer, so. You haven't done a race in 2 months? Is that true? It's literally not true. That can't be, because I'm literally looking at it. You did one in, you did one like 4 days ago. What the fuck? Hello? You did one on the 25th, according to the race bot. Oh, your last, it was after a 2-month hiatus. Damn it. I don't know how to read. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Oh, you've only done, okay, got you. I'm dumb. Hey, I have dyslexia. Be nice to me. Or else you're bullying. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff, so. Oh my god, people whispering me to get unbanned. Lol. I think there's ways to mitigate the incredibly bad Freeland, but at the end of the day, if you have to 100% the castle while splitting between the first and second castle, which is a possibility, it's less likely in casual logic than it used to be in safe logic, but at the end of the day, that's still going to take a long time, so.